everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Composite Conversations. Today, we're going to be talking all things structural adhesives, and I'd like to welcome Deklyn Barnes to the conversation. Hi, Dek, and thank you for your time today. Can I start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role and your company's involvement in the adhesive sector?
Of course, appreciate being invited. So, my name's Deklyn Barnes. I'm the Business Development Manager over at IPS Adhesives. We are a global adhesive company. We've got dual manufacturing across Europe, UK, and North America, and really we specialise in structural adhesives with MMA technology types.
Thank you for that, Dek. If we start looking at the current market, really, how would you describe the structural adhesives market today, and which end-use sectors are driving the strongest demand?
Overall, globally, I would say it's still solid. There's obviously been a little bit of upsets recently, but it's still growing. Single-digit forecast growth, and it's really being pushed forward by the welding and fasteners slowly being engineered out of designs, and that's really around transportation, I would say, is the main end user.
Transportation in general sense, or is automotive one of the big drivers there?
So automotive, I mean, across, if you're talking about transportation, it covers everything, but automotive, especially around the EV, it's really got a big push at the moment, obviously with the oil prices changing on a daily basis. So there's always been a focus, but EV at the moment is a hot topic. And with the adaptation and governments and companies really looking to really improve the environment. So it's really a big push. And obviously with the light weighting around that linked to the heavy weight of the batteries, obviously bonding structural adhesives is the way forward. And a lot of people are looking into it and adapting it into their processes.
Okay. And how does the growth rate, for example, in Asia Pacific compare to that in Europe and North America?
I think they're quite similar across the board. Now, what I am seeing changing is North America seems to have stabled out quite a lot. Europe seemed to be, it died down and was having a bit of decline, but it seemed to be growing a lot more, where obviously Asia Pacific has always been an emerging market. So what I am seeing is current changing of where the supply is going. Now, the manufacturing is staying in the regions, but where they're trying to grow into different regions. So I'm seeing Asian Pacific kind of manufacturers trying to sell more into the Europe, obviously, as the technology advances.
And in those major geographical markets, who do you see as the key players?
Well, across the board, you've got the the initial big players. So you have your 3M, your Henkels, your HB Fullers. Under that, you've still got your Arkemi and your Huntsman. But then it depends on the chemistry type. You then have your niche specialty chemical companies, the people like IPS, who obviously I represent, ITW, that really look at the MMAs. But still, the big players are still up there. But then you've got the smaller ones really specialising in the niche markets, which is what obviously I'm linked to.
And do you see the possibility that some of the regional players in Asia or India actually going up to challenge these global majors?
I do, to a certain degree. I think they really have to change kind of the mindset of the end users from not being a volume kind of manufacturer to a value added manufacturer. But I do see some kind of stumbling blocks around the approvals and barrier to entry. It's obviously a lot of these players have spent a lot of years and a lot of time working and understanding the approvals and actually being kind of the process drivers. So they've been designing it so their adhesives obviously fit into it. So to approach that market, there's a lot of cost involved in the manufacturing point and the quality. But obviously, I do see as there being a breakthrough, especially as we try to really digress and move into more niche markets.
Understandable. So if we look forward then, how would you expect the structural adhesive market to develop over the next 5 years? And what are the key drivers for that development?
Over the next 5 years, I mean, structural adhesives are projected to grow. I mean, some people say double digits. Some people are saying they're expected to go double where it is currently today. I think the really drivers are geographical changes, not relying on certain regions to supply the world. As obviously more and more people look at different substrates, moving away from metals into the more composites, that's really going to have an effect on what people are looking for. and also new ingredients in materials and in formulations as they've been developed, and obviously regulation changes. There's going to be a massive need for bonding rather than the welding and riveting. So with that, I expect a lot more growth.
And is that really again part of that drive towards EV lightweighting is going to be a major constituent of that growth?
I believe so, yes, definitely so. Especially in certain factors. Obviously, marine has been historically a big market sector. We've seen a lot
Hmm.
of kind of decline in that around the leisure. Where obviously it had its big boom around the COVID times, but now I believe that EV lightweighting. When you look at the trucks and the buses, a lot of there's a lot of incentive, especially across Europe, to have electric buses in the towns and all that. It needs as much lightweighting as possible because obviously the sheer size and weight of the batteries. So I really
Hmm.
see that as the deciding factor, and cost saving
Okay.
comes with that.
And I suppose the drive to lightweighting means that the construction becomes made of dissimilar materials, and so the ability to bond, I think, becomes even more important.
Yeah, as you look at low surface energy, your plastics, moving away from the original aluminium, frames, really got to be down the composite route. So from that, you can't weld them. You
Hmm.
need something that still has that structural strength, and
Uh-huh.
also you need to look at the manufacturing process. How much does it cost to train people up to be a welder, keeping that skill set in one location? Obviously, with the structural adhesives, yes, you need obviously a lot of skilled and highly skilled in the actual manufacturing process, but you can easily transfer that.
Okay, understood. So if we bring a little bit more focus to India, so how do you see the structural adhesives market developing in India over the next few years, and what specific opportunities or challenges do you anticipate here?
I see India has quite a strong place, to be honest. Obviously, we've seen it in the Chinese market.
Hmm.
What so the Chinese market obviously started giving the run for its money. Where India, I think, has also got that opportunity to grow. I think it really needs to, I mentioned earlier, transition from being a volume manufacturer to a value. They need to,
Hmm.
focus on performance over commodity. There's enough players out there in the market at the moment for the commodity. If you look at India, where it can really bring its technology advantages and its growth rates, really focus on the speciality side, bring that niche, and have that, that geographical location to supply, the Asia Pacific as a region rather than
Hmm.
historically been supplied from North America
So,
and Europe.
so that would mean that you expect really India to develop further local manufacturing capacity for the structural adhesives market rather than rely mainly on imports like it does today.
I believe that in the long term, yes. But I also
Okay.
believe that some of the big players will look at India as a potential target for growth for their manufacturing rather than
Mhm.
rely on the current climate.
So building on that, do you know of any notable JVs or partnerships which are already emerging in India between major players and local players?
Not any that I can talk about openly, but there's always murmurings. I mean,
Hmm.
from an IPS standpoint, we already have a lot of business already in India, and we're looking to strengthen that as we go forward. And so that's a really exciting times for us. But
Okay.
you can see really the big players how there's a shift from investment. There's a lot
Hmm.
more investment in the Asian markets than in the Europeans, and that's really linked round to regulatory requirements, cost of living, getting that skill set. So you can really, over the last couple of years, I've really seen the change. Historically, people wouldn't look to manufacture outside of the European and North American regions, but now they are, and they're looking for an alternative to the Chinese manufacturing, I believe.
Okay. And so you painted a very rosy picture, I think, overall for the structural adhesive market in the future. What are the challenges then that could slow or even stop growth in this market?
Regulations are changing on, I would like to say, nearly a daily basis.
Hmm.
Being a good manufacturer, we all know of the manufacturers that don't follow all the rules. But
Hmm.
to be, end of the day, it's chemicals, so you need to be up to the regulations. Things are changing with that raw material shortages and supply, and people changing the way with the costs of manufacturing nowadays.
Hmm.
Constantly having to keep formulations, within the rule book and as health and safety positive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Approvals, end of the day, this is structural adhesive. When you're manufacturing, and even when you're end user, changes don't happen overnight. Some of these approval programs can take a couple of years, and that can be a really stumbling block, especially as you try and grow in regions from a manufacturing point and an end user point.
Okay, interesting. And how are companies addressing the sustainability concerns with regard to bonded structures?
There's a couple of things that people are doing. Obviously, you look at the packaging, that's the most easiest to look at. So there's a lot of bio-based renewable packaging being put into place. Looking at the carbon footprint, but really from an actual engineering point, the bio-based, I would say, is a key topic. Trying to really use renewable ingredients in the formulations, looking where possible to be green. It's a lot easier said than done. Remember, it's a structural adhesive. There's certain technology type that needs to be involved in that, but bio-based is the way forward, and that's hopefully where people are more going to go, make things more green, better for the environment, but obviously maintain the strength of mechanical fixings that's required for those application types.
But I suppose, do you really expect bio-based adhesives to be commercially viable within the next 5 years or so?
To be commercially viable in the next 5 years would be a big ask.
Mm-hmm.
To be more accepted, I would say yes. To be more on the thought process and more on the company's initiatives to at least look green, I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that brings us to the end of the time today, Dek. So thank you for sharing your insights. And before we close, is there anything else you'd like to add, just before we wrap up? Perhaps advice for companies wishing to become major players in the structural adhesive market?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, in my experience, you need to understand the market, focus on one technology chemistry, understand what your customers are and where you can actually bring value added. It's a big market out there. There are a lot of players, and the ones that succeed are the ones that are customer focused, understanding the market, employ good people, and bring a value added. I can't stress that enough. You want to solve someone's, problem, be the solution provider, not just an off-the-shelf chemical manufacturer.
Very good advice. So thank you once again, Dek, for your time. And that's it for the second edition of Composite Conversations. Thank you.
Appreciate it.